If you think the song was offensive, just listen to our podcast.
Yeah, and go back, if anything, go back and listen to like episode 1 and 2. That way you get the story of where the song came from, and then our perspective from the songwriters, and then on episode 2, I believe it's 2, you get Aldine's perspective. So you kind of get the whole thing, and based on those two, you'll either like the podcast or not. You'll know.
What I loved about what he said was that all the messages he would get from people after the song came out, I'm behind you. And he'd be like, well, how far behind me are you?
He goes, you're like way back there.
Yeah, I know.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's Middle Tennessee, it says here.
Yeah.
Sounds riveting. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals.
Yeah, mostly. That's right. Thank you, Mr. Matt Wilson from the Mostly Marketing Podcast. He's a good friend of mine going back to the late 90s when we both started in radio together. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs, and we have real conversations that have tangents and rabbit holes like normal conversations. Go figure. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com. That website again, MMTBP.com. Pick your poison there in terms of how you want to listen and consume. If you want to watch us, you're more than welcome to. Listen to us there as well. And we also have a link if you want to be a part of the show. You can apply and send it in. It's all right there at mmtbp.com. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com and It'sYourShow.co, where we produce world-class podcasts such as this one, among others. And today, I'm very excited about because we have a pair of dudes coming here. We're going to be talking about all things music business, songwriting, podcasts, and all that fun stuff. So if you're interested in coming to Nashville, or if you're in Nashville and you're still navigating the music scene, you're in good company because it's still a navigable business. People are still trying to figure it out. So welcome to the show, Mr. Kelley Lovelace and Neil Thrasher.
Yep.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to be here.
How'd you like that intro?
That was wonderful.
Navigable.
Navigable?
Navigable.
Is that a word?
That's the biggest word. We've never heard that word that big in our podcast.
What's the actual pronunciation, the correct pronunciation?
Navigable.
Navigable?
I believe
And it's pronunciation, not pronunciation, I don't think.
Is it pronunciation?
We can't even get pronunciation right.
Pronunciation.
There's so many words that, have so many different interpretations to them. It's crazy.
I would hate to rhyme with navigable.
Well, now throw that gauntlet down. There you go. There's your challenge. So you guys have been, you've written a few hits here and there, to say the least.
We're stubborn and we refuse to leave.
That's a fact.
But Kayla, I'm going to start off by wishing you. I forgot to do this yesterday when we were all together. Happy Veterans Day, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
That was Monday. You are an Army veteran.
Yes.
Going back to, I want to say probably the early 90s?
Yep, 87, 89 at Fort Benning, Columbus, Georgia.
And that was just something that I remember you and I talking about that on our trip to Paso Robles.
Yeah, we had some good stories.
Yeah. And that was one of those things that you just, you got out of high school and I'm just going to go join the Army.
Not exactly that. I took a little time off. I was the middle son, so you can't do the right things. You can't follow your older brother who did everything exactly right, Right. So I kind of blew off summer, and then I went to college because my parents wanted me to. And I learned in college that you didn't have to go. They didn't take attendance. Right. And so I went to class for 2 weeks, and then I went up to the pool hall for the rest of the semester. And what they do is they fail you out, Jim, even though they don't take attendance. So I was scared my dad was going to kill me for wasting all the money. And at the same time, I was wondering how I was going to get out of it. And then I watched the movie Rambo First Blood. And there's that scene where he's jumping off the cliff and he fell down through the pine tree and all the branches and everything, gets to the bottom, and he's got this huge gash on his massive bicep. He pulls out his combat knife, unscrews it, and takes a needle out and sews it up by himself. I leaned up on the edge of my seat and said, I want to do that. And then I joined the next day.
That's an incredible, inspirational story. It's an odd one at that.
Yeah.
But
it's true.
You were also, you received the coveted Distinguished Honor Graduate Award.
Yes.
recognizing you as a top soldier in the company.
God, I'm learning stuff I never knew about you.
Yeah.
It's all right there at
amazing.
KelleyLovelace.com.
Because I'm a rule follower, so it makes sense that I would thrive in the military.
Which is funny because, you know, you say you're a rule follower. I mean, is that the kind of, would you describe yourself as the same way, Neil?
No.
Not a rule follower. But your primary profession right now is songwriting. I guess there are rules to songwriting, but every now and then you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, you know, to shift everything up and, you know, kind of see where the wind is blowing in terms of where the songwriting world's going, right?
I don't know if you'd call them rules. You don't. They're not rules. We don't follow rules. It's kind of more like procedure. Are they the same thing?
And it's a little bit of the frustrating part because there's not rules.
Yeah. Well,
kind of. But you got to make your own rules too. You got to find your own way if you want to have some commercial success as a songwriter. I mean, you kind of got to find your niche and what you do and what you add to the co-write.
But you have the family background. You had the Thrasher family band in Alabama.
Yeah.
Was that like a big, notable band in the area at the time?
Back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, my dad and them, the Thrasher brothers, they were a gospel quartet. They were pretty big.
Yeah.
They were the first ones to record the song "One Day at a Time," that Chris Christopherson song. Mm-hmm. They did that in 75, I think, and that's how I cut my teeth and how I learned how to sing harmony. And
it was a family business, but were you opposed to going into it? Because I know at one point you wanted to at least get into college football.
Well, the football thing was, I mean, I played all through Little League and high school and did that. And I think my dad probably kind of tried to push me that way.
Yeah.
To, you know, because I was a good kicker in high school and I went to Middle Tennessee to kick. And
did you play soccer too?
Yeah, a little bit. It's the only time I ever really got hurt was playing soccer, but he kind of pushed me that way. It wasn't like steering me away from music, but it kind of, now when I look back, I kind of can see how it kind of was a little bit. But
were they apprehensive about you guys getting into it, or you chasing it?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, I think kind of steering you in this direction because, you know, I was talented at that, and he was kind of steering me that way. If he was steering me away from music, I didn't know it.
Right.
But I always knew what I was going to chase and what I was going to do.
Which is funny because, I mean, going after football, it's like those are two passionate, high aspiration career paths. Mm-hmm. You know, my parents always told my brother and I on the last episode, or second to last episode, you got to have something to fall back on, have a plan B, that kind of thing. They were so concerned with us being successful at something. My father told my brother, look, you know, if you're going to pursue music, you're going to wind up as a garbage man. And my brother always remembers that. And these are things I found out in that podcast episode that stupefied me. I was like, I don't remember. Oh my gosh, why would he tell you that? But I think it was to scare him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's really kind of odd and unfortunate because he's now at, 53 years old going, I could have been a contender, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, my mom was kind of the same on having a backup plan because she was trying to get me to go back to college after the Army because I was just floating around and playing in bands and stuff. And so she found MTSU, a music program there, a business program, and then Belmont, which I eventually ended up at Belmont. And that's where I met Brad Paisley, got the internships and everything, and eventually met Neil just through all that because my parents were pushing me to do something as that fallback if the music business didn't work out. That said, if the songwriting didn't work out, I mean, your degree is in music business and you minor in business administration, so I probably would have went back into
if you're really
management or something, you know? Like
Rich and I do a podcast together, The Rich Redmond Show. That's how I met you the first time, Neil. Completely, made my hair stand up. He actually, if you go back to that episode, search it on YouTube, it's right there. Probably in the middle of the episode, we play Night Train. Yeah. And you're singing and there comes that point where you just hit that soaring high note. I was like, and Rich didn't set me up for it. He just let me experience it for the first time. Because as you remember, I was holding the phone and getting other shots, and you hit that high note. It was like, oh my gosh, just the hair on your neck stood up. And Richie, you even see him kind of look at me, go, yeah, This guy. You see the look on his face,
I get lucky every now and then.
But I mean, I guess you had the advantage of having a family band, getting into it, and that path kind of, the connections are kind of already there, I guess, to a certain extent. Kalo, not so much. I'm going to call you Kalo. Your name is Kelley. Not so. You kind of had to. You had to get in there in more of an organic way, I guess, right?
Yeah, I didn't have any contacts. My uncle, he's a veteran. Also, he was in Vietnam. He's passed away now, but he played bluegrass music. He played banjo and guitar. So I was always fascinated. And I would tinker around, but I was never a great guitar player or anything like that. But I did like, once I did go to school, I did like literature. I liked poetry. I liked writing poems for girls and stuff, and the creative writing. I did like all that. Yeah. I had no idea to lead to songs, but I liked something about writing. I just didn't know exactly what that was.
No, the poetry has to come in handy.
Yeah.
Neil and I were just talking, Mike, do you have a background in, writing poems and stuff like that?
Nope.
But I mean, let's first tick off the...
Neil's a manly man. He didn't write poetry.
But you do. I mean, you are writing poetry.
No. Not really.
Come on,
we can't call it poetry.
No, ever. I didn't start writing songs till I met Lana, my wife.
Yeah.
I was doing the artist thing.
Yeah, you wanted to pursue
that. Yeah.
But I mean, it was understood that artists in Nashville generally didn't write their own stuff even then. This was the early 90s you were doing that,
that's right.
Because you did Thrasher Shiver up until 97, correct?
That's right.
And then, but the songwriting didn't kick in then either. Well, you met Lana in 92.
Yeah.
Right.
It was when I met her.
Yeah.
And got to know her and hung out around the publishing company for a while.
What turned you on to it?
I don't know. She's the one that turned me on to it.
Yeah.
And set me up. She's the one that actually said, you need to start writing. You need to, at least try it.
Yeah.
And she set me up with my first writing appointments back then. And I started paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool how they twisted that. And that's pretty cool how he played that and how he changed the melody there and the chord structure on that one. I'm going, shit, I can do that, I think.
Yeah.
So I just, started getting interested and started digging in and kind of found my own thing.
Yeah. And at what point did you realize maybe there's something? I know that you told the story on the podcast. Just for those of you who don't know, I'm the producer of your podcast, the Try That in a Small Town podcast. You yourselves and Kurt and Tully from the Aldine Band wrote that song, and I found out things about that song that I was really surprised about, but we'll get into it. And I would imagine that kind of thing going from the artist to a songwriter, is it a tough kind of thing to do? I mean, but I was getting back to the story you were telling. You were out on the road trying to be an artist, and one of them hit, right?
Yeah. I wrote a song with Kent Blasey called That's What I Get for Loving You, and we pitched it to Diamond Rio. And I was actually out on the road on radio tour.
Yeah.
Trying to push our new record. And they cut it, and then they put it out as a single, and it went was climbing the charts really good. Went to number 2, and
it was a big hit.
Yeah, it was my first one.
Right.
And I remember Lana calling me one day. I was like, I think I was in Steubenville, Ohio, and she called and she was crying, and I was like, "What's wrong?" She got the first check in the mail, and so I was.
Was it like a life-changing check? Like it was just one of those angelic moments?
For us, it was. Heck, really? Yeah. For us, it was. We've never seen that kind of money.
You're like, I got to do that again.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy and it was wild because we'd be going to radio stations, and we had been out there for a couple years already doing radio tour, but we were still doing it.
Yeah.
And all the radio stations wanted to talk about half of our interview would be about my Diamond Rio hit.
Right.
And my partner, Kelly Shiver, was like, he didn't like that too much. Right. We're pushing our record.
Let's get back to us.
Yeah, no.
What does this have to do with me? I mean,
right.
Why are we talking about him so much?
So I just kept writing.
Yeah.
As well as being an artist. But I came off the road in 99 when Reba put out What Do You Say? and it was another hit. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to devote all my time to writing.
Yeah,
so I came off the road.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
No.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Right.
No.
Yeah. I can't. It's funny because being friends with Rich since now, I mean, we're going on almost, 20 years. It showed me the life that I would have had. And it's like, no knock against him. I mean, he loves his life. He loves what he does. But I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. That's a rough life.
Yeah, I guess if you got thrust into it and it just happened.
Yeah.
And it started happening. You got to go with it.
Yeah.
And whatever happens. You just roll with it and you take it.
But I was realistic about my, I played drums when I was a teenager into my 20s. I was in cover bands. I knew, of course, with that small voice of my parents living inside your head saying, they just didn't believe we would ever be successful at it. Plus, I had no idea how to go about it. I was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. We had New York that we could go down to and possibly explore things. But I'm like, I'm not formally educated in music. I'm a basement, woodshedder, pretty much. I'm capable of playing and memorizing songs. I can't read music. So, hey, let's just have a good time with it. And eventually radio found me and off I went.
Yeah.
Kind of carved my own.
You got the voice for it.
You got the voice for it.
I didn't back then.
Really? You didn't have that same inflection?
My balls didn't drop yet.
Did you have vocal implants?
Not vocal implants, just age. Okay. Age and colds.
It's working.
But I mean, let's tick off the stuff here, the hits. Kalo, you're talking about, let's see. I should have planned this out better. But your first one was a Brad Paisley hit. It was his first number one as well. Mm-hmm. Which one was that?
He Didn't Have to Be.
He Didn't Have to Be. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, when I found out that you wrote that song, what did I say to you? USOB.
Oh, because it made you cry.
Oh, gosh. I remember like it was yesterday. And do these recounts, like my personal experience with your song, does that make an impact to you?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, because Neil and I think he would say the same thing. If you can ever write something and have success with a song that means something to us personally, like to he and I as buddies, or about our mom or dad or brother, sister, daughters, whatever, that's the most meaningful songs you can have. And if you move somebody, whether it inspires them or makes them cry in a kind of a happy way, like I don't want to make anybody sad purposely,
right?
But
no, it's a joyful cry.
Yeah. So it brings you joy that the time that you put towards something that can cause somebody to feel something good.
You move somebody.
Yeah.
Because I remember heading southbound on the 95 in Vegas, getting off the exit to go home. And Courtney and I were getting in the mode to move to Nashville because we had already, the notion of moving to Nashville came up. We know we wanted to get back to the East Coast, but not the Northeast. So I was looking at Atlanta, at Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham. I think Memphis came up at some point. Oddly enough, Nashville did not. And out of nowhere, the job popped up out of Nashville. And it was with a family-owned radio company. Perfect scenario and situation. Had a conversation with the general manager. Said, hey, we're actually going to vacation in Tampa. So Courtney and I took a trip down there. Kind of realizing it would be the last trip we would take by ourselves. And the whole time we listened to country music. So fast forward, we ended up going to Nashville, do the interviews. I get hired, head back. We do a bunch of stuff, getting ready to move, listening to country music radio in Vegas. And that song comes on. And I was like, oh my gosh, it just knocked me on the floor. Mm-hmm. Was that a personal experience? Was that a personal?
Yeah, it was written about my stepson. But the interesting thing about the song is that Brad Paisley, he was done with his record, and I'd already had 3 songs on there as a songwriter, and which for me, like, all you ever wanted was one. So if you have more than one, it's like, hey, we're piling on here, So I was totally content, and so anyway, he came over and had dinner one night, and I had a guitar staged out on my balcony. Not staged, setting out there. And was it
underneath a spotlight or something?
Yeah, there's a little neon spotlight on it, just pick me up, because he's going to pick it up and start playing, Right. So anyway, he just picked it up and was noodling around, and we were talking about my stepson, and he said, man, you really love that little guy, don't you? And I said, yeah. I said, I thought it was going to be super hard. I was really nervous about it, but all you got to know how to do is play Nintendo and you're a national hero, you know? Yeah. And so he said, we ought to write about that. He goes, take me through that whole scenario. And so I just told him about it, and when we wrote it just like it was, and that's how it came out. And and it was actually Tim Dubois, who, Chris Dubois and Tim Dubois at Arista Records. He was the head of the label at that point. And Brad played that song at CRS, Country Radio Seminar. Yeah. And he just wanted to play something new, because he said, hey, you guys have already heard my record and everything. You want to play something new? And he did. And then got a lot of emotion in there and people were crying. Then Tim Dubois came up to him after and said, Mister, I think you need to go back in and record that song. So they went back in and added it to the record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Timing's everything.
Yeah.
No,
it really was. Yeah.
It's crazy because you look at a song like that, you listen to it, and you've got one too that I wanted to ask some of these artists that, does it choke you up when you get to certain parts? Because I sing songs in the car and stuff like that, and I get to certain lines where I can't keep going because I'm like, I get verklempt, right?
Yeah.
You know, remember that old Saturday Night Live? I'm verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. Here's a topic. The Holy Roman Empire was neither Holy nor Empire. Discuss. That's how I get, man. It's crazy. You know? I mean, did that happen to you?
It's very rare, and
really,
Neil can speak to it. Like, because we play a lot of writers' nights, like Bluebird corporate events and things, and you've played the songs hundreds of times.
Yeah, you get
not thinking a thing about it,
right?
And then one certain night, one certain song like that can all of a sudden hit you. Or it's something that you've written. It's a verse about my dad, and I've played it 80 times since he's passed away, and smiled and been happy. And then for whatever reason, it'll
knock you on your feet.
Yeah, and there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So, Kalo, you've written, just so much stuff here. I'm Still a Guy, Start a Band, American Saturday Night, Water, Remind Me, Take It Off, Camouflage, a lot of Brad Paisley hits. Yeah, I don't need to remind you of all these things, but just for those of you listening. Okay, do you want me to do it in this nature? I can do I Can Change the World. Brad Paisley. Running Out of Moonlight, Randy Houser. And that was going to be a Paisley song too, was it not?
No, it wasn't a Paisley song. It was just I'd came up with the idea based on a conversation I had from his bus,
right?
And he was talking to somebody about a Foo Fighters record called "Wasting Light," and so it's a little bit of a long story. I don't know how much time we have, so I don't want to eat into it.
No, it's however, as long as it's compelling, that's what I mean.
Oh, it's compelling.
But Mr. Neil, and another song that I don't remember where I was, but I remember when we heard it. It came on and it hit me again. I'm like, son of a bitch, why am I getting so choked up? There Goes My Life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You son of a...
You're welcome.
You got me. You know what I mean?
We got everybody on that one.
But that's a powerful song for you because it's a personal tie.
Yes.
You tapping into the family dynamic. I got to first say, and I've never told you this before, but my observation with you and Lana, and even from Courtney's side of things, when she sees you guys together, and she's not known you as deep as I have, and that's not even that deep, but she sees these things and she acknowledges it as well. Your marriage to your wife is a model marriage that I think a lot of people need to take seriously. You could tell you guys really love each other.
Oh, yeah.
So for what it's
we
worth,
like each other.
You like each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You like hanging out with each other.
Used to love each other. Yeah. Now they like each other.
She can't stand being without me.
Likewise, I'm sure.
She just couldn't function. That poor thing.
Yeah, I think it's the other way around.
That poor thing.
We were talking about that the other day, and I'm like, I go on these I have these hunting trips planned or whatever, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna go hunting for a week. It's gonna be fantastic because my kids are gone. Yeah. They're out of the house, and I'm like, yeah. And I talk big, and then after like day 2, I'm like, dang it, I'm ready to go home.
I miss everybody.
It ain't got nothing to do with the trip that I'm on. I'm having a blast, but I just, I miss her. I'm like, it's just the way it is.
I get it, man.
It's just,
it's like you want to go place. I want you by my side. That's how I feel about Courtney.
Yeah, he's a good, I think, you know this, Jim, because you were at the podcast probably, but Neil did a really good job at his youngest daughter's wedding just
recently,
a couple months ago. And I mean, I love Neil, respect Neil. He's my best buddy and everything. But it's kind of fun when somebody that you're that close to surprises you in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, and he gave that speech, in front of everybody, and it was just heartfelt and godly, and just it was just perfect. And I looked over at my wife, Rachel, and I said, well, that's a man right there.
Right.
It about made me cry. I mean,
what was the speech? I didn't hear about the speech. What was the speech?
It was just good. It was nothing. I guarantee he did not write it down. He didn't practice it. I would have spent time.
I didn't have anything written down. I was just like, they handed me the mic, and I'm like,
you just riffed.
Yeah, and he had a touch of humor in the beginning, not too much. Yeah. But just enough. And anyway, it was really, really good. Really good.
Was there some you had some comedy in there? And
I don't remember what I said.
Really?
It was a blur. When your kid gets married, you don't remember much.
I think
I remember. I remember. I go back and look at the pictures, and I remember that. I remember walking her down the aisle and that stuff. But those kind of things, it's just like I just don't remember what I said. I didn't know what I was going to say. They handed me the mic, and I'm like, oh, okay. And what am I going to do?
Did you have a clip moment?
No, I didn't actually. No.
You're not a public crier.
We had a moment the day before, the four of us, me and the girls, in Atlanta. Yeah. So,
well, what was it? The Blue Eyes and Bouncing Curls. Who's that in relation to?
Mm-hmm. That's Emma, my youngest.
When he got married,
me and Wendell put her in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the only time you were asking him is like when you perform those songs.
Does it choke you up?
Yeah, the only time that I almost lost it is when I had to sing it at one of them's graduation.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. That was hard.
Was that song, or was it really?
They wanted me to do that one.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. They asked me and Brett James both to sing because his daughter was graduating too.
Yeah.
And he sang "Jesus Take the Wheel," and then they wanted me to sing "There Goes My Life." And I remember when I got that phone call, I'm like, oh man, I got nauseated. I'm like, because all I could think about was singing in front of the whole school, but those caps and gowns that were sitting right there in front of you, and then you're up there exposed singing this song.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can make it through it. But you have to really mentally go somewhere else. You have to block it out if you want to make it through it in a situation like that.
I wouldn't know.
What was it you said you were thinking about to get your mind off of it?
Staring at the gym rafters,
I thought it was something about the principal or
thinking
something.
about the headmaster in his tighties.
Just trying to think of anything funny to distract.
to get through.
Was it the notion of, oh my gosh, I might break down, or I don't want people to see me cry?
No, I don't. That doesn't bother me. I just wanted to get through the song.
Well, it's funny. I mean, are you guys like, do you get emotional in front of people if need be? I certainly do.
Oh, I don't mind. I'll try to hide it, I guess, but I definitely
as men
cry at movies or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm.
What's the movie that does?
I'm
it
a romantic. Rambo: First Blood. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. It could be anything. I don't know. It could be the older movies. I can't name one right off the top, but I'll cry long before my wife will, and she'll look over, and I'm just kind of doing like this, and she goes, "Are you crying?" I said, "No, but I'm not crying."
Are you being a little?
I'm not crying. My God, no.
It's allergies.
It's allergies.
Well, what's the
Where's
movie?
my Zyrtec?
Was it a movie come to mind that does it to you?
No, I can't think of one right off the top. It could be it could be a lifetime thing. It's just something that you click on while you're waiting on Sports Center to come back on. You see a little scene. Next thing you know.
So just had a little deviation to the Lifetime movie. Got to get back to the Sports Center.
Back to sports, hon.
Yeah. So what about you? What movie does it for you?
The first movie, I remember the first movie that shook me up as a kid was that movie Brian's Song.
Gosh, I'm not familiar with that.
What?
I'm not.
Oh man.
Maybe I am.
James Caan. And who's the guy that played Gale Sayre?
It's the leukemia, right?
Yep. Yeah. Brian Piccolo.
Gosh. He
played Brian Piccolo, who played with Gale Sayers at Chicago Bears, and Brian Piccolo got sick.
Yeah.
And was passing away and was going to die, and it was. I remember that. That freaking killed me when I was a kid.
Oh wow. I don't remember.
Well, then on football, Rudy. There's some in Rudy that got me when he finally got to run on the field. That was cool.
For me, it's the end of Saving Private Ryan.
Oh yeah,
when he's in the cemetery and he gets up, he goes to his wife, "Tell me I lived a good life." I was like, "Oh gosh,
yeah,
oh freaking kill me."
Oh, no, let's don't even talk about The Notebook. God,
Yeah, that too. That's a good one. And here I know you're being facetious. I'm like, I just agreed with him.
No, I watched it. It's been a while, but I remember it being sad.
The other one, believe it or not, for me, and it hit me a couple of years ago, is A Christmas Story. Mm-hmm. Because I watched that movie when it first came out in 1983 in the movie theater. I was one of the few because it was a flop. And before it became a cult classic. Came to find that out not too long ago in Cincinnati, or Cleveland rather. They have the Christmas Story house up there. You can actually tour it where they filmed the movie. And as you watch the movie as you get older, because I watched that movie, I killed it when I was a kid. I could remember. I could probably recite the whole thing from beginning to end.
You'll shoot your eye out.
Yeah. And it's when you start realizing the whole movie is about the dad. Everybody didn't listen to him but his dad. His dad he never thought to ask his dad, but his dad was right there listening to what he wanted, and he's the one who ended up getting him the gun. And as a dad, when you watch that movie as you get older, and I've been watching it, like I said, over 40 years, it dawned on me. I'm sitting there out there one Christmas morning, and I'm just like, tears coming out of my, it's like, Courtney, are you crying? I'm like, yeah. All of a sudden, it's like, it's hitting me because I'm seeing it from the dad's point of view.
Yeah.
It all of a sudden turned. It was like brilliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
I'm a wimp. So that and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, that'll get me.
I don't know if I'd cry on that one.
That's a Father's Day movie. That's my Father's Day movie. So it's all about fathers.
All right.
Yeah. I'm a big Marvel guy. So
that's funny.
Yeah. So you guys met. You were telling me it came up the other night in one of the podcast episodes how you both got together. You knew of each other, but didn't know each other. And I guess you met each other in church, correct?
Yeah, and I knew of Neil when he was in Thrasher Shiver, and I was working in publishing at the time, and was pitching songs to their label person and everything. And of course, they never cut anything. Our songs weren't that great, at the time, but that's why. But anyway, it was years later, and we went to the same church, Brentwood Baptist Church, and Mike Glenn was a preacher there, and I'd seen Neil a few times there, but I'd never approached him because I didn't know him. And I was walking out, just happened to be fairly close by, and he said, "Hey, Kelley," and I went over there and just talked to him for a second. And he said, "So you ever going to write with me or what?" And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll write with you. I'll write with you right now. Let's go.
I got surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised, and I said, and I was walking out thinking, "Wow, Neil Thrasher wants to write with me." Because to me, I was already respected what he did, his singing and his writing and everything too. So, but that's how we met. Yeah, that was the first time.
Well, you were like a double, triple threat, Neil, because you had really good songwriting, but you were able to cut really good demos. Because that's the process, correct?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You want to do the demos.
I mean, we started putting a premium on our demos. It's like, we got to make them sound as much like records as we possibly can and really kind of push it over the edge. You know? I mean, we're selling a product, so we want it to be nice and shiny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, even going beyond the demo, because I've been with Rich in cases, we actually did a 7-year documentary, but it takes place in a week, so to speak. And one of the scenes was I was on a lot of demo sessions with him, just shooting whatever I shot. And he's like, yeah, it's 3 songs in 5 hours, man. Just boom, 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 boom. Let's crank them out. And is that, or maybe it was 5 songs.
Just 5 and 3 at the time.
Yeah,
heck yeah.
I had it reversed. But 5 and 3 hours. My goodness.
That's just the tracking. I mean, we would track, we would actually track 5 songs, and then I would do vocals right after we got done tracking.
Yeah.
And whatever overdubs they were doing, but we'd do all that in like a session.
And that's just.
But the 3 hours was for back in the day anyway.
Yes.
The 3 hours was for the tracking, and those players, they were just so good. They would just play a kind of, for me, I'd say a crappy version of a song, and they would chart it out with their number system and then play it, and it made you sound amazing.
It sounds airplayable, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. But if it does get chosen. Because, I mean, these things, this kind of a process is happening in Nashville. What would you say? Hundreds, 1,000 times a day?
It's probably not as much as it used to be. And it's a different process for a lot of people now.
Really?
Much different. Yeah, you have a lot of times, even today, you'll have, for me, there's 4 of us. And it's interesting how it used to, it was two writers is always a two-way, and then it got to be three ways common. Three-way is still pretty common, but now there's fours and fives. But there's usually a track person in the room, a track guy, track girl. They've got their stuff set up, and they've got something, 4 on the floor, something going. Somebody throw out an idea, and they'll start. They're building. They generally got their back to you with the headphones on. Mm-hmm. You're doing lyric and stuff like that, and they're building the track. And then by the end of the day, the artist is in there singing it. And you drive home at 3:30 with a full-on demo, and you never went to a studio, and it sounds pretty dang good.
So that money, all that time is spent on one song or a 5-song demo. Is that how it works, or just one song for that?
That's just one. That's just something you did today.
Whatever you wrote that day. I mean, you write the song that day or that morning, and they're doing the track the whole time you're writing.
Wow.
And then the track comes together, and by the end of the session, they've got the track there, and you do a vocal, and you go to the house, and they're mixing on it, and boom, before you get home, you got something to listen to.
It's like a day-long lottery ticket.
Well, and nowadays it's hugely beneficial for this reason for sure. If you have an artist in the room, they're there. If you can finish it and you can get that artist to sing it that day, that's the only time you have them. Because if they get out of that room, you'll probably never see them again.
Right.
It's hard to get them to come back, just the times, the schedules. But if you can get it, and then at least you have a chance for that song. It's complete. You got a chance.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better, sound better, and, well, spring better. We just make them incredible again. Incredible Doors in Spring Hill. For when your door's springs break, you need remote reconnections, opener installation, or just about anything to do with your garage door. Go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR.
But I mean, it depends on the artist too. If they're a new artist, they're not exactly going to be a decision maker unless they're established, correct?
No, but at least it's done. You have something you can pitch.
But I mean, the ultimate thing is to get a number one, a single, or airplay on radio.
Yeah, and that's something that's out of your hands. After you write the song and demo it, that part's out of your hands.
Right.
Way
completely. There's nothing you can do.
No, you can make some phone calls, but you don't know if you have any.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of people in that space, they don't consider themselves salespeople. Rich and I always have this conversation, especially on his show, that where is the sales edge in the creative space, which is very non-existent. Because people, I'm just creative. Well, no, you're still a salesperson, and that's always been my take.
Yeah, I think that a lot of songwriters, including myself, we're not great salespeople. We would think, the song will speak for itself,
right.
But there are some songwriters that are better at business, and they do sell and push a little harder, and there's some evidence that works a little bit.
What's the one thing holding you back right now from making this song make it to the top 10? What do we need to do?
I'll tell you one quick thing. It involves Joe Nichols, who's a friend of ours, and I've had a couple of successes with him. Me and Don Sampson and Joe wrote a song called "What's a Guy Got to Do" a long time ago, and we had heard that it was between our song and another song, and I knew what the other song was, and it was on the record, and so I listened to the other song, and I'm good at giving everything a fair shake, and I listened to it, and I thought, you know what, whichever one they put out, they're going to do about the same.
Right.
They're the kind of the same type song, and so, but then I ran into Joe at a cigar store just a few weeks later, and he was very nice. He goes, "Hey Kelley," he goes, "Our song's got a 50-50 shot, being the next single." And I said, and for whatever reason, and I never get the opportunity hardly, to say anything. I said, yeah, I did hear that. I said, you know what? I've listened to both of them. I said, I think they're both equal. I judge them both the same. I said, but there's a difference in the two. And he goes, "What's that?" I said, "You're a writer on one of them." I said, "There ain't nothing wrong with putting $100,000 in your pocket."
Right.
Yeah, that was so brilliant.
And that was it. And
what a great opportunity that was.
In a week, now I don't know if he ever carried that back with him, but a week later it was the single.
Wow.
That was an excellent move.
Time, yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess, I didn't realize that sometimes you guys would actually have the artist in the room while you're writing the song.
Yeah. Sometimes you do. You don't all the time, but you do sometimes, and it is a benefit.
My naive understanding is that You know, an artist, the management, the producer, they curate, you know, a selection of maybe 50 songs before it gets to the artist. And then the artist, okay, let's pick these 12 or whatever. You know, this is my brand. This is how it fits me, so on and so forth. Is that a way of doing it, or is that a typical way?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay.
No, you go.
No,
you go.
I mean, it's a way, but there's a lot of artists. It's kind of interesting. You'll find that they don't push their own songs.
Yeah.
You know, some of them do and some of them don't. And it's very hard to push them.
Right.
You know, because they've got, you know, one, if you have a relationship with an artist close enough to be writing with them,
Yeah.
you just don't want to push it too much because you got so many people wanting things from that artist that you just try to hopefully write the best song you can and hopefully that song will win out.
Right.
You know, but I mean, it's still an act of God to get something to come out on the radio.
You have no idea. He answers those questions so much better than I do. It's not even funny.
Are you afraid of not being politically correct, or you just don't want to? Why is that? I should ask.
We wrote "Try That in a Small Town."
Yeah.
Not afraid.
I know you're not afraid, but I mean, what is it something that you're not? What is your take on that?
On what?
On what he just answered. Is that basically the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to writing with artists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I would always usually get in a singing battle with the artist. we would get into, like, I would sing my melody, what I thought my melody, and I would always we'd always kind of, you could feel the tension in the room because I'd be singing it this way and they'd want to sing it this way, and I'm going, oh, and I'd like my way better.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, writing with Neil and an artist, because we get an opportunity sometimes to write with younger artists, and Neil being nice, you know, like my experience with Neil, he is an artist. He's a hit songwriter, but he is an artist, and it helps in his writing because the line isn't right unless it sounds good with him singing it, you know. Right. So it might be a good line, but he might sing it and say that didn't sound good to his head or for whatever reason, and he'll change something. He'll say, "What about this?" And it sounds right to him. Mm-hmm. So that's the artist part. So it doesn't mean he's going to record it and put it out, but for him to sing that demo, of which he's going to spend a lot of time doing it, he's got to feel it, and it's got to be right. So when we get a new artist that comes in, and I know Neil as a great gifted writer, lyrically, melodically, and all the things. And sometimes Neil will just, you know, set his guitar down and he says, "Hey, young artist, I want to hear what you would do." And I'm like, "Oh no, don't do that, Neil. Pick up. They want to write with you. They want to write with us." And he'll go, he'll be real nice. He'll go, "No, I'm not touching it." And I'm like, "Please, touch the guitar. Please."
No, please.
Do it.
It's very tough writing with some of these artists, man, especially some of the newer ones, like you said.
Well, I would imagine it's kind of like, for me, it's coaching, you know, people that want to get into voiceover. And I would imagine that you would hear the same nuances and phrasing, inflection, if you will, you know, tonality, melody, that are somewhat amateur, that need a professional touch, right? So a lot of voiceover talent will read a script, and every time I talk to somebody who wants to be coached in voiceover, I've always been told, "I'll stop you right there. Okay, I have a good voice." "Yeah, how'd you know?" Because I hear it all the time. It's whether or not you can use the voice.
Yeah.
You know, can you interpret copy? Can you give it emotion? Can you make the words come to life? That takes, I always tell, it's the ham factor, being a ham. And a lot of people, when I do a suggestive tone, they're always doing like a very suggestive, non-confident tone when they initially start to interpret reading copy for voiceover. And I say, you need to turn that suggestive into an affirmative. You know, instead of saying, you know, head on over to this place. Well, maybe not. It kind of has that like iffy tone to it. Head on over to this place. That has more of an affirmative tone to it. Do you find that to be something that you contend with new artists and how they interpret copy, if you will, or lyrics, or how to sing them, phrasing, things of that nature?
You just kind of hope that they, because when it comes time to putting a vocal on a track, I'm gonna put a vocal on the track, and I'm hoping that the time that I spend on it and the melodies that I chose and the phrasing that I chose, I hope is going to sell the song to that artist, and he just doesn't have to do a lot of work.
Right. But is it one of those things? Well, I didn't hear it exactly like that.
It's happened. Yeah, that's happened before.
Can I coach you a little bit?
Well, I can. When you have an artist, they have producers, and they're going to do it their way anyway, and that's fine. You know, you just try to give them a good template to go by.
Gotcha.
Because the majority of the new artists that I've worked with, they're kind of coming in wanting you to steer the drive. They want you to drive the ship.
So getting into, I think we're kind of, I'm going to say, a fun instance of how the music business is, because it's ripe for innovation. It's ripe for something new. It's something's got to give, right? Because Tully talks about it a lot on the podcast, that for an aspiring songwriter to come to town, it's not like it was in the 80s, 90s, even early millennium, right? The money is split so many different ways, and there's less of it because of streaming. Music business issues that we're considering. How do we fix it, guys? What do you think the solution is? And what are people talking about?
I honestly, I don't really know. That's out of my wheelhouse.
Sell me on it.
Like, I don't know. The only thing, just
that's my line.
Just as a straight up songwriter, you know, the thing that needs to change, just for a straight up songwriter who is writing with artists who sometimes don't have a label deal, but they are making money on streaming, and they've got their socials and they are putting out content. And some of them have subscription things, but they're making money because they own the masters, you know, of those songs. And they're putting it out and they're getting it. But sometimes the writers don't participate in that, and sometimes it's your idea, you know. And you find out a little while later, say, "Oh yeah, so and so is making like $8,000 a month doing." What are you talking about? Yeah, you know, it's like, well, it's my idea. I don't even get anything. I haven't even seen a penny.
So like intellectual property kind of thing.
Well, it's one of those things to where now there are artists that are, if they do release something, they are coming back and grabbing those writers and letting them participate in the ownership of the masters. So you'll get something, you know, as you should. You should get something. Yeah. If something's going to go out and make money, then you should get something, you know. So I think that's something that will continue to change and grow, because the writers aren't going to want to write unless they're getting compensated for their time and their work.
As there's less money in the business to go around, in songwriting in particular, being that Nashville is such a songwriting heavy town, you got to have a good song. It's got to be lyrically strong in this town and in the genre. You know, for years, you know, rock didn't need that. It was a mixture of the music, the feel of the song. The lyrics were almost like secondary and tertiary. You know, I just realized the other day what "Don't Stop Believin'" really meant. And I told Courtney, I said, "You realize this song makes no sense?" And she goes, "What are you talking about?" You know, and she explained it to me, because she's more of a lyric person. I'm more of a music person. I hear the drums, I hear things going on in the music and the melody. And then she explained it to me. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. But in the like what the music that we came up with in the 80s and the 70s and stuff like that, sometimes it would be powerful lyrics and sometimes not. It would, you know, the hair bands, they weren't exactly knocking it out of the park with powerful lyrics, right? But I mean, with the quality of songwriting and less money being out there, does that mean the songwriting quality, is it going to be a Walmartization of songwriting?
It already has been.
Really?
Oh yeah, I've noticed the quality of the lyric content of the songs. I've kind of realized here in the last 10 years that the audience, the country music audience, they're not really paying that much attention to what the song's saying.
Really?
Not as much as they used to.
Yeah.
Lyrically strong songs like He Didn't Have to Be, and maybe There Goes My Life and things like that. I tell people all the time, I couldn't get There Goes My Life cut today. And you couldn't get it cut today.
You got to have songs that are in a drawer.
Well,
that will probably
I've got
be relevant.
songs, and I've got a lot of songs that I've written in the last 5 to 6 years that I'm like, how are these songs not recorded? I mean, because they're just good. We worked our ass off on them, and they're good songs. Can't get them cut.
How many songs do you think you've written total in your life?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
No?
No idea.
You can probably extrapolate some sort of data and do the math on it. Right?
I would say a few,
1,000?
between 3,000 and 5,000 probably.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I was telling Neil about my one song idea before you got here. I just have one idea. It's going to be.
Got to be good.
That's right.
It
better be good.
You don't say it on the air.
I shouldn't say it on the air.
No, somebody else will write it.
You think somebody else will take it?
You never do that. You never divulge your never.
I told you about it. Does that mean you're going to run with it, or is it just a bad idea?
Well, I mean, legally, you can't copyright an idea. Only the expression of that idea. So he could take your idea and not write. If y'all didn't talk about how, he could, but he wouldn't. If
you run with it and it becomes a hit, just take me to Perry's. All right, let's just do that.
He wouldn't do it. I would. Any songwriter, generally any songwriter is not going to do that. Yeah. Especially if they're an idea person, nobody's going to do that.
You know. Yeah. My brother seems to think that the storytelling songs will make a comeback.
I hope so.
I don't think so. And that kind of goes to the other point when you said "There Goes My Life" wouldn't be a hit today. That's Neil's words, not mine. Or he didn't have to be. I think it's because those songs that take time to develop, I'm not sure the consumer has enough time to listen to it, develop, to get that impact, to get them to the end. I think now we got to grab them right at the beginning.
I've never seen so much music available.
You know,
to the listener.
Like we were talking about songs that are starting with the chorus. You know, like they used to do that, but just start it. And even Jelly Roll, like some of his best lines are in the beginning of the song. He gets it right from the jump.
The funny thing
is smart.
Is that song he does have out. It hits you in the face
right away.
That is, "I Am Not Okay" speaks to such I think that sentiment resonates with so many people right now. And there's a reason why, and it's that book right over there. I call it Pendulum. I think I've told you about it. And we go through cycles in history, and I say, right now, 2023, according to that book, we're supposed to have lived through 1943 all over again. And it's based on cultural attitudes at the time. It's an amazing book. It's a heady read, probably an easier listen, especially the way the authors interpret it. But basically, it studies all the things going back 3,000 years. And if the book has any merit, anything that the tonality of the hit songs from the 43, 44, 45 going into the early 50s are what's going to resonate moving forward. So if you're going to be a songwriter, listen to what were the hit songs, what resonated with society in that time frame. What was the nature of the lyric? What were they talking? Was it looking forward? Was it okay in the present? Was it yearning for yesterday? All that stuff,
Interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting take on, and I would suggest it because, it's actually a book based on marketing.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote it, his name is Roy H. Williams. He wrote it with a co-writer, and they wrote it because they were marketing guys and they would write all these different ads and marketing campaigns for their clients. And what was working at one point stopped working almost like a year later. All of a sudden it wasn't resonating. Something shifted in culture. And they started looking at it. They discovered a book that was written in the 80s called Generations. And it talks about 20-year shifts in society, like systolic and diastolic shifts, like the tides, if anything. Positive and negative moments, and they're all in 20-year shifts, and it's crazy. They talk about, they basically took what they wrote in that generation and said, well, we see what you're saying, but we see it more like a pendulum. We go through from a me, which is we zenithed in 1983 as a me, 20-year downswing to a tipping point, which happened in 03, 20-year upswing to where we were in 23. Now we're back on a downswing. And the odd thing about it is in a we zenith, which is what we zeniths in 23, according to the book, it's the most tumultuous point of the pendulum. That's where you're going to have wars. It's where you have massive conflict, a lot of witch hunts, regimentation, a lot of the stuff we're seeing today. The only thing I've been cautiously saying this, it's the only thing we're missing is a calamity. We don't have a civil war. We don't have a world war. We don't have any of these things that we can look back on that kind of resets stuff. And maybe COVID was that. Maybe it was the election. Maybe it was more of an intellectual thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But without that calamity, I would dare say that, I'm not sure if the 40s and 50s era of songwriting may add up moving forward, unless we have a calamity, a conflict of sorts.
Yeah, I pray not. I think we've had enough stuff. Yeah. You're talking about Jelly Roll. What I think is interesting about him as an artist, he is singing like true stuff. Like he's been through some things.
He has.
And and the songs he's putting out is like songs that I wouldn't think you could even get recorded, but he's putting them out like, need a favor, and it's great. It said, only talk to God when I need a favor. God, I need a favor. It's fantastic. And you have a lot of people that are lost and searching and everything. And I think he's ministering to
he's a good instrument.
Millions of people. I don't know him at all. I've never even had a song recorded or looked at by him, but I really love what he's doing.
He's been at it for about 10, 15 years.
Yeah, he's been after it a long time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, maybe we're at a turning point. I thought it was happening with Zac Brown Band because he put out some real deep stuff in his songwriting. I don't know what your opinion on that is.
Like Chicken Fried?
Chicken Fried.
Chicken Fried was the first one. That was a fun.
Deep fried.
But it was a hit. That was a hit.
Yeah,
I love it.
I get what you're saying there, but I mean, that's what got him on the map, got him established. There's some songs that, resonate with Courtney and I. There's one that's called Bittersweet. That's another song that will make me tear up. There's another one that's like probably going to be the one I dance with my daughter at the wedding, and I can't think of it.
Keep Me in Mind.
The Man Who Loved You First.
Okay.
I'll always be the man who loved you first, or love you the most. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I'm up in a freaking lift because we're do lighting here, right? We're up in Cleveland, Ohio. You're talking about being away from your family for 1 or 2 days. I was away from mine for 8 in this particular situation. And we had to put 500 lights in. We're changing out old ones, putting them in. And you kind of get into a rhythm, and you're wiring things up, moving on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm listening to music as I'm going around. And I put on Zac Brown Band, and we just always like listening to him. That song comes on, and I'm just doing my thing. 2 minutes later, I'm a blithering mess up here with like my light on, and I'm, playing with, I'm like, I feel like I need to call my family now. Totally pathetic.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I like to see the soft side of Jim.
I know, right?
Give it time, you'll see it. But the funny thing is that you think that maybe we kind of rounded a corner with the Jelly Roll stuff. There's a lot more deep lyrical songs coming out now.
Yeah, and sometimes when people start putting those out, it frees the other writers up in the community to say, hey, we can write stuff like that. Then you have more that surfaces, and so I think it all helps.
Do you think because I know that Spotify and streaming has a significant impact on the distribution of what these songs do? Do you think that there's a solution to that?
Ooh, that's a good question, and who knows?
That's what I'm saying. The technology.
They're trying. NSAI is trying. Everybody's trying to get back in front of it.
Yeah. Is it just adjusting how the distribution is done within the streaming services?
We're just going up against these monsters. I mean, these huge platforms, and trying to get them to divvy out some more money to the writers, to the creators is like, it's so hard. It's next to impossible.
But I mean, it's like almost like Hyundai, Kia versus Mercedes, BMW. Is it possible that another service could come to fruition that is the Mercedes, BMW, Audi, like premium songs? Like, we're not going to put our songs on Spotify. We're going to be over here. So when you want the good stuff, it's going to cost you, maybe a premium, $40 a month.
I don't know. I know a guy you could have on here that knows all about it.
Really?
Yeah. I just don't. I'm just not well versed in it, really, to preach on it.
We just know we're not getting paid enough.
Right.
We do know that. We know that the creators of these songs are not getting a big enough piece of the pie.
Yeah.
To split.
It seems to be happening everywhere, though.
Yeah, and one thing it does for Neil and I is it just keeps us writing harder and writing less, actually. But for us, quantity over quality. So a lot of people churn out a bunch of songs, and some of them land. Yeah. And I think for us, we know for us to survive, we have to be on terrestrial radio, which
that's changing too.
It keeps our bar up. But right now it's not. Right now, and it's still there. For my foreseeable future, that's going to be the biggest way I can make money with songs.
Because that structure is still in place where you get the most bang for your buck, so to speak.
Yeah,
is
so
getting
you're riding toward that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on terrestrial radio. Because I mean, when I was a part of radio, and one of the guys we had on Rich's show, he and I kind of get into it. They wanted to go after radio once upon a time and get more of a premium out of, like, I think it was Sheryl Crow that was leading the charge. Radio should pay more of a premium for the licensing of the music and help us pay the musicians, I think was the argument. And us in radio were going, dude, we're tapped. The creative brain trust of radio has been so diminished and cannibalized over the years, especially when I was in it. I'm like, where else do you think we're getting this from? Mm-hmm. We're a symbiotic relationship and partnership. You help us, we help you. You need us, we need you. Mm-hmm. Why are you trying to milk us? And it's funny because the guy that was on, I can't remember who it was, he took real issue to that. And I was like, dude, I'm going to tell you right now, you're wrong. It never came to fruition. You guys remember that at all? When that happened, she was kind of going after radio?
Mm-mm. No, I just do remember back, and I know Neil does because being a singer, is that, we were programmed to know that the artists on the radio, they're not getting paid for singing on the radio. They are advertising their product for sale. Yeah. Right. And then that changed, significantly, and then after that artists are getting paid, for singing, and I think, well, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's performed over and over and over again,
So the getting to the next phase of life, because it's funny how these things happen in 20-year increments. I know my life has. I've had a big shift at age 40. Now we're getting into podcasting. You guys are entering that world. You're in my world now with podcasting.
And we still don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, but you're getting.
We're having fun.
Yeah, we're not quite in your world yet.
If you haven't, when you brought somebody in particular onto the show and things kind of got, they started moving in the right direction. I don't know who that guy is. I mean, you can go ahead and give him praise if you like.
Jim McCarthy. No, we are thankful to have you and your experience. And we have had a lot of people that have really helped us, and we're still so young. I mean, we're what, 30 episodes, right?
At this recording, you're going to be putting out episode 30 on Monday.
Yeah, and some people even in the beginning just to encourage us or give us advice, and they weren't participating in any kind of way, So we're thankful for the help, and we're still learning, having fun. It's it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
But I mean, how is it fun for you? What's fun about it?
Well, one, the four of us getting together, that's the only time we ever get together is at that table.
Right.
And so you find yourself, like during the day, you're writing and stuff and you're busy and you're like, man, I got to have something to prep and everything. And you're not really ready. But by the time you're on the way, then you start looking forward and say, well, it's going to be good and get to see the guys. I wonder what we'll talk about. It'll be exciting. The time you get there, everybody's amped,
Yeah. I'm not quite as like, apprehensive or nervous as I used to be.
Were you nervous going into it?
Well, because I didn't know what we were going to talk about. I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? We didn't.
See,
that's not what we do. It's like, but I'm like, now it's getting like, I'm looking forward to it now. It's like,
yeah. When I first saw the notion that you guys were doing it, it was end of April, May, and instantly I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I'm always looking for the stuff that will, I just saw what you were doing and I instantly knew, I'm like, they're onto something here. And that's when I started reaching out to Kurt and I said, hey, congratulations. If you ever need any help or counsel or anything like that, let me know. This is kind of, you're in my playground at this point. And that's how that whole conversation began. But to me, it was the Try That in Small Town podcast based on the song of the same name by Jason Aldean. You guys wrote the song. It was controversial. It certainly got a lot of attention. And now you're doing a podcast. I mean, I guess when you put the song out, you said to the music industry world, this is where we stand, and we're not afraid to say it. To me, that was risky. And I loved the element of the risk, and I've told you this before. Was that going through your mind when you started, well, let's not only write the song and put it out there, and to hell with what people think?
Our part wasn't risky, in my opinion. We had fun writing. I couldn't wait.
Right.
When Kelley brought the idea over, I couldn't wait to jump on that thing. And that wasn't the risky part. It was Aldean. He assumed all the risk.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that aspect of it as well, because a lot of people, he had the target on his back.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people don't think, well, hey, he's not the one who wrote the song, but he is the one putting his mark on it and endorsing the concept. You guys actually wrote the song, but then you came around with the podcast saying, yeah, we wrote the song and we're standing behind them.
Yeah.
But that's a signal. It's a huge signal in a very, dare I say, left-leaning industry,
Yeah.
I mean, you could be, blackballed. There's a lot of risk there. I mean, that's how I saw it.
Yeah, and at the time, I know when we were writing it, we definitely weren't thinking, boy, we're going to stir the pot on this one.
Really?
It wasn't that at all, because we were writing content, a song that goes directly toward the country music base.
Yeah.
It goes to all of them. So in our minds when we were writing it, we weren't rattling anybody, because anybody who wouldn't like that message wouldn't be listening to country music. We just didn't realize how quickly people who didn't like country music would listen to it.
Yeah.
Did you think that when you were writing it, though, that it was going to do what it did?
No.
Really?
No, we were excited about it. And for us, finally, you're getting to say something, because generally, conservatives, you're getting told, and, we don't have a voice much or anything. So it just felt good to stand up, for your neighbor and say something. And so we felt good, but we had no idea what it was going to unleash.
No, when Aldine cut it, even when he cut it, Kayla was kind of like, he's not going to put it out. And I'm like, I didn't really know, but I was kind of keeping the faith, and was like, I think he'll put it out. It's going to make some noise. It's going to make noise, and it's a great time for him.
Did he indicate to you that he was like, were you there when he first heard it?
No.
No.
No,
well, I guess,
but it didn't take long when Tully and Kurt pitched it to him, like the song, long enough to play the song before he hit them back and said, "Hell yeah, I'm cutting this."
Really?
Yeah, and then Kurt and Tully told us about it 2 months later. They got immediate satisfaction, and they said, "Oh yeah, he loved it first time." I said, "Well, that'd been great to know."
But the video helped too, because that was a lot of controversy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sean did it justice for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
He's good like that.
Yeah, it was just actual footage.
What's funny is that
America.
No, being that I was always closer to Rich amongst the three of those guys. Never knew anybody's politics. It's not something I don't really talk about. Never really knew Rich's politics. He doesn't talk about it at all. But I was surprised, honestly, at Kurt and Tully's stance. That took me by surprise.
Really?
I had no idea.
When you say stance, you mean their stance on stage when they're holding their bass and guitar, that when they get really
crushing
low?
ants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, just, it was more aligned with how I think. I was completely taken by surprise by that.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting too, I thought about this the last few days, is after the election and all the heat that Aldine took, for saying, wow, you're not like hardly anybody else. Well, apparently he is. He's like, the majority of America. And that song's message is like the majority of America.
Mm-hmm. It resonated.
We just didn't know it, but now a lot of people have spoke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what was surprising to me is that was one of your biggest hits you've ever had.
It's definitely my biggest.
Yeah, it's the biggest, just because, and the hate, the hate drove it a lot too, but it got on that list of, I think there's 20 country songs that have hit number one in country and number one in the Hot 100, which is all genres of music.
Right.
Since 1955,
I
think there's 20.
Yeah.
And, it's on there with, Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 and Convoy and, the songs we grew up on,
right.
which that list, is Until the Earth Burns. So it's kind of cool to be on that list.
Well, it's funny because, part of the reason why we wanted to get you guys on is to talk about the podcast and the fact that, hey, looking at you guys watching and listening, it's a ground floor opportunity for sponsorship, because you're on episode 30. We're still early in the game, so you might want to consider getting in before the prices go up, because this is unlike anything I've ever seen with a podcast. You guys have easily made top 3-ish% of podcasts in the nation with your numbers, especially being as far in as you are. You're pushing, I believe we're at this time of the recording, we're just past 70,000 downloads. We're pushing a cumulative million views on YouTube. So that's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
That's great.
And especially that's in under 6 months, right?
Yeah, I feel like I don't even feel like we've been doing it a week. It's gone by that quick. We haven't. I mean, we're fairly young as far as what I've learned about podcasts and the world of podcasting.
Right.
We're young.
Podcasting is radio 2.0. That's where a lot of people are going. I still have a lot of friends and colleagues in radio that are still very romantic about the medium. I'm right there with you, and I hope that people that listen to the podcast, I'm a proponent of podcasts right now because that's the next iteration of radio. Right now, as we're living, and unfortunately, radio is just it's cannibalized itself to the point where I'm not sure how much longer it can sustain.
Yeah,
I mean, you got iHeart that laid off a bunch of people here recently. And it's just crazy. So you got a lot of these advertisers that are looking for other alternatives. This is a viable alternative, guys. This is definitely a show to look into. If you go to trythatinasmalltown.com. You're going to run and buy that URL now. Trythatinasmalltown.com. You can certainly inquire there to
yes,
about sponsorship opportunities.
If you think the song was offensive, just listen to our podcast.
Yeah, go back. If anything, go back and listen to like episode 1 and 2. That way, you get the story of where the song came from, and then our perspective from the songwriters, and then on episode 2, I believe it's 2, you get Aldine's perspective. So you kind of get the whole thing, and based on those two, you'll either like the podcast or not. You'll know.
What I loved about what he said was that all the messages he would get from people after the song came out, I'm behind you. And he'd be like, well, how far behind me are you?
He goes, you're like way back there.
Yeah, I know. That was a funny little segment there.
Because you have so many people that are just hesitant to plant that flag in the song.
Yeah, and I want to, and there's I want to talk about that on our podcast too. At some point, about there's still even though Trump got elected and he won, there's still going to be a lot of artists out there that are going to be reluctant to mention his name.
But do you think that it's kind of like what you guys are doing is paving the way and giving permission? I think you've signaled that.
Oh, we lightened the load a little bit on some people,
right? For
sure, to let loose and I'm done being quiet. I think there's a lot of people.
That's what. Well, you guys are doing it now. I can do it.
Yeah,
you see that happening?
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, I think I've got a brain cramp on his name, but the artist, the red beard and everything, great voice. He had that song about Richmond, Richmond and Richmond.
Oliver Anthony.
Yeah, and really cool. And that came out after the fact, and you kind of wonder, and you don't know, but because it is what it is. But it seems like Aldine and Try That in a Small Town did open up some channels for other people to say things, and I think even if you're not in the music community, I think it gave people kind of like, hey, yeah, it is okay I can give my opinion, of what I don't have to be quiet, and we're not storming anything, we're not causing protests or anything. We're saying, hey, we believe this, we care about God and family and country, and that's okay.
I think Hollywood recently just got punched in the face. I think they really did.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and I'm not saying it to be upset anybody, but I think it's a reality. It's like the old Mike Tyson comment of everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth,
Right.
And Hollywood, I think, is waking up to, well, maybe we're not as important as we thought we were.
I hope maybe they realize that they don't know their audience as much as they thought they did.
I honestly, Neil, I'm telling you, we're at a turn. Something's happening. There's definitely a cultural shift happening, like per the book. That's underway. I mean, I know that you're like clamoring to name names and all that stuff. Not that you wouldn't want to get anybody in trouble, but there's some people.
not unless they deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a political revival,
Yeah.
And it just seems like, like you said, it's some sort of turn. And I think it will be good. And we talked about this on the podcast too. It'll be good for the Democratic Party because all of, whether you have far right and far left, those are small contingents.
Yeah.
But the Democratic Party as a whole, because we feel that they were led by the extreme left, missed the middle. They just missed the middle, and the hardworking American men and women, and they missed it, and they had plenty of time to catch it, and they just wouldn't or didn't. I don't know why they didn't, but they wouldn't change. They wouldn't talk to us.
It's what is the old adage that when you get to name calling or insulting people, you've pretty much lost. I mean, that's a lot of what it was.
Yeah.
Now, what I didn't like, and I was very public about this, was the gloating from one side. I don't like it when either side does it, because I remember how it felt when I felt like being on the losing side, and there was gloating, as well as calls for unity and stuff like that. I think we are at a time in our history. Per the book, it does talk about how do you weather a we cycle, and that's with extreme empathy. And I've been a huge champion of that concept. We got to start, seeing that in people,
Yeah.
being empathetic to each other. It has to start happening. And my brother put it best. He says, look, there's things about the right side that are true, that the left side says about the right side that are true, and there are things about the left side that the right side say that are true. There are people in the middle, like we talked about, It's the manifestation of brutality from one side to the other that makes the difference. So,
yeah.
However that manifests itself, I have no idea. But
Yeah.
I mean, would you guys agree with that? I mean, in terms of like the empathy aspect of things, Neil?
Hello, that's put on me.
Because you feel you have a lot of convictions, you have strong beliefs, and I appreciate that.
And most of mine are just moral convictions. Most of mine, it all has to do with the divide morally that the left and the right has, and it's gotten so much. The divide's gotten so much wider, simply because of the insanity and the depravity. It's driven by the far left. I'm not saying all Democrats are like that,
right?
But the far left has gotten so extreme and so depraved thinking and so perverted.
Yeah.
There's so many areas of that I'm sitting back going, how can you vote for that? How can you be on anybody's side that's okay with all of that?
Yeah.
And that's really where the divide is for me.
Do you feel like we're at
It doesn't have anything to do with China. Doesn't have anything to do with foreign policy. It has everything to do with morality.
Right. Taxpayer dollars going to certain things, that kind of thing. And
people
not having a say.
Yeah, let's spend our tax dollars on a prisoner to get a sex change in prison. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I'm serious, man. It's like,
No, I know.
And we got we got hungry vets on the road, on the sidewalks, but no, let's let the prisoners, let's let the murderers and the convicts get sex changes in prison.
Right.
Yeah, it's mismanagement is what it is.
I could see that. It's a conditioning of sorts.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I honestly was surprised by the result of I wasn't surprised in that Trump won. I was surprised at how quick it took to come to a decision.
I was shocked.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be dragged out. I honestly thought it would trigger a civil war, to be honest with you.
I thought at least lawsuits, and we wouldn't know for months.
Isn't it amazing though? Think about it. Nothing happened really.
It didn't. I mean,
it was such a landslide.
I know it was such a landslide. It was like everybody was stunned. Even the left, they were stunned.
Right.
They're still in shock.
But the thing is that
that's right.
I come across with, I try not to engage on social media because I think it's just an echo chamber. You're not going to, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. It's as true as the day is long.
Yep.
Okay. You're not going to convince anybody. I kind of live according to when Christ said, they will know you by your fruits. Show them. Be the example. Don't gloat. You could celebrate, sure. There's celebrating that absolutely, but don't throw it in their face.
No,
they're licking their wounds, man. It's like we've been there.
Yeah, and it just as simple as relate it to sports. Something that you love in sports, like for Neil and I, college football. Like if Alabama beats Tennessee, he's not texting me saying, "Hey, what'd you think about that, Kalo?" Just say,
take that.
In your face.
And if vice versa, there's the person I don't want to. I don't want to take. And Neil, for whatever reason, he's a huge fan. Like he probably wouldn't get mad about it. But I don't care if he'd get mad about it or not. I'm not going to rub it in because he's my buddy. Yeah. And I love him. So I'm glad that we won. But I didn't beat Neil.
Yeah.
It's like
you did.
It's like, well, maybe a little, but but you know what I mean. You just
playful cajoling's one thing.
That's right. That's right.
But another thing is like what you're talking about. with my kids, the concept of good and bad has been coming up. Oh, he's a good person. He's a bad person. He's a terrible. I go, guy, how do you define that? What's your arbiter? What's your source of good? And that you got to analyze that at some point in your life. How are you defining? Because I always say, look, on 9/11, you do realize there were people in the world that thought that event was a good thing. How do you reconcile that? Mm-hmm. There were people in the Middle East because they were tired of some of our policies and what we did over the years, and they feel like we finally got ours. Mm-hmm. They thought it was a good thing. So who's the arbiter? And that's when faith comes into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on to the next question. This is I've always been waiting to ask you guys this. I always come up with questions like these while we're recording. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to wait until they're on my podcast. I'm going to ask them this. I want you guys to tell me, and one of you guys is going to have time to think about this because one's going to answer first. What band is like your guilty pleasure, first time in public revealing who it is? Like what kind of music or band that you secretly like?
There's so many. You kidding? Oh my God.
You know what mine is?
There's what? Who?
The Backstreet Boys.
I wouldn't have said that.
Right?
Yeah.
I've always appreciated. I always enjoyed their stuff. Right? Yeah. They had a freaking solid band, man. They were a good act.
No.
They're good songs.
Timing was perfect.
Right.
No.
Anybody come to mind? I mean, but like you've never admitted it before.
Oh,
totally deep,
so you
dark
want
secret.
Something
band.
that would be a little embarrassing to admit?
Maybe.
Let's see. I don't know.
I mean, we came up like Def Leppard, AC/DC.
Yeah.
But they're all those
Rat,
those
Poison, like rock stuff.
I like Rat Poison. I don't like it.
But those aren't bands that you would.
Poison.
Those aren't bands that you would go.
Yeah,
I was a Rat fan.
Right.
You wouldn't.
I think he's talking about like Barry Manilow.
I know.
Michael Bolton.
No, I mean,
I know. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to think. I'm going.
Celine Dion.
Did I like anybody that was perceived as
Yanni.
that?
Yanni?
Yanni. Did you
John
say?
Tesh. No?
Yeah. No, I can't. I'm trying to think. No, because mine are all legit.
Yeah.
And it's legit rock, legit country. I loved Huey Lewis and the News.
Aren't they great? They're a great band.
I'm just like.
There's a band out
REO
there.
Speedwagon.
Oh, well, I was a big Journey fan.
Yeah.
I was.
Journey,
but
yep.
I mean, Steve Perry was a vocalist, and I was just like, I was a vocalist like that. And, he's in my world.
Dude, I got to hear you sing Don't Stop Believing one of these days. You could probably nail it.
Yeah,
Right?
it might
That'd be good. He could do that.
We need to do that on the show once.
He could do that.
I don't know.
Need to bring a piano player in there and do it. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Kayla, what's your closeted,
I don't know if I have any, I don't listen to hardly any music. Like if somebody has it on, like on a road trip, I'll listen. But if I'm by myself, I generally don't. But I liked a lot of old nostalgia stuff. Like we mentioned Barry Manilow because
he was a good songwriter.
You are not a Barry Manilow fan.
No, it was the but I liked some of it. Like Rod Stewart, I liked a lot of that stuff.
Well, he's a badass. He's a hell of a singer.
But you're talking about listening to lyrics, and you remember the song "Looks Like We Made It," and that was a Barry Manilow song, right?
Yeah.
You'd think it'd be very positive. I listened to it about 2 months ago. It's the saddest song you'd ever know. It says "Looks like we made it," right? And you're talking to this you'd think it'd be like this old married couple, like you made it through all the stuff and the kids and the cancer and all the things. It's not that at all. They went their separate ways and they're both happy with other people. And it says, "Looks like we made it." It's like, well, that's terrible.
That is terrible.
It's like that Pina Colada song.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it.
Exactly,
I know it. That song for sure, man. I remember, and it wasn't too long ago. That song came on.
Right.
I was in an elevator or something. I don't remember where I was. And I actually listened to the words.
Yeah.
I was like,
oh my gosh.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We were both about to embark on cheating with each other, and we got, hey, there you are. What are you doing here?
There's been a time I have turned up an Air Supply song before.
Dude, they're good.
I've turned it up before.
Chicago.
Not afraid to say.
Yeah.
Some of the who's the singer? The big hits from Chicago.
Peter
Cetera. That's right. Yeah, we will sit there and we'll jam out.
I'm a Bad Company guy though, man. Paul Rogers he's the freaking dude, man.
Yeah. See, it's fun. It's speaking of songs that you listen to later in life. I used to listen. I was a huge Van Halen fan growing up.
Absolutely.
That was my taste. Like we all have our parents' music, and you always have that moment of when you discover your music, right? And for me, it was I was 7, 8 years old in a tent on Assateague Island. My brother and a friend of ours, they went down to the water to go swim, and they left me behind because I was a younger brother. But this friend had a boombox, and it was like a divine thing. I just had an inclination to hit play. And that opening salvo of 1984, you know, and then it goes into Jump and Panama, oh my gosh, front to back, I listened to that thing, and I was hooked. Yeah, I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah, that was me with Van Halen.
Really?
If you're between 50 and 70, that freaking ain't talking about love.
Oh gosh.
Oh man,
great stuff.
And you play it for your kids and your grandkids. Like, listen to this. This is what I loved. And it's the first record. Oh
Unchained.
My God. Yeah.
Well, and I had
Jamie's crying. Oh
yeah, and I had Rachel listen to Night Ranger, Don't Tell Me You Love Me.
A good song.
Because it's one of the best guitar solos. Like, I mean, it's nostalgic for me. And now it's on her playlist. You know, she didn't know who Night Ranger was. You know, but it's really, really cool. But what's the one Van Halen song that you can think of that could not come out today?
Black and Blue. So if OU one too.
They couldn't come out today?
They wouldn't come out. It just couldn't come out today.
Hot for Teacher.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one. But it was a massive song to us, you know, coming out Hot for Teacher. It's like you could never come out with that.
Try that in a small town.
Come out that on country radio.
Yeah.
You got to wonder. It's
There's
like,
some dude trying it in a small town.
My brother, when he was here the last time, we put that video on, and he's like, "This is just the best video ever."
I know.
Sit down, Waldo. Remember that video? David Lee Roth driving the bus.
Yeah.
And the coolest part about him, like, and it's funny because in that one episode, my brother and I, or at least I did, I discovered so much about him I didn't know. And he's like, that guitar solo where he's walking down the desks in the library and the tables, he's like, that's like the best. I'm like, I thought that too. That's like, just to see Eddie doing his thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
You know that album almost wasn't made?
The first one, you mean?
No, 1984.
Oh, 1984?
Yeah.
Really?
Ted Templeman and David Lee Roth were not pro the keyboards at all.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember seeing that on a
yeah. And that's why Eddie built his studio, the 5150 studio, so he could do it under the radar. He and Don Landee made that whole album, and Ted Templeman is like producer in name only.
Interesting.
He had nothing, very little to do with that album. Isn't that crazy? But I was going to say Black and Blue is the song that when you go back and listen to it as an adult, because I used to listen to that in my formative teenage years, not paying attention to the lyrics, I was listening to the music. And you go back and I'm like, this is like completely X-rated.
Yeah.
You know, let's do it till we're black and blue. Slip and slide, shove it in. I was like,
oh gosh.
All right.
You know. Yeah.
That's Jim McCarthy. We're going to take a break.
Okay, here's another question for you guys. You have to pick a band to be in a tribute band for the rest of your lives at like gunpoint. The rest, you know, bad things happen. What's the tribute band? You got to play the music over and over again.
Oh.
You mean if I'm in it?
Any genre?
Yeah. Anything. You got to play it constantly.
Eagles.
Nice.
That's probably right.
You do that?
That's a good one. Yep. Yep. I go around the world in my mind of bands, yeah.
You could actually hit the notes. I could play tambourine in the back.
Kayla doesn't give himself enough credit.
He really doesn't.
Vocally. He does not. He does not. Because his pitch is perfect all the time.
No, you're kind.
No, it's true. You don't give yourself enough credit.
Well, thank you.
His comedic timing is genius.
Oh, he's awesome.
Well, thank you. Comedy covers a lot.
Yeah. You definitely have the dad joke thing. It comes in handy.
Yeah.
So with that being said, my band would have been the Huey Lewis tribute.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt.
Fun band.
No doubt.
There's actually a band here locally, and every time I bring them up, I always say that I'm going to be their drummer at some point. It's just going to happen. Just get used to it. They do a Huey Lewis and the News tribute. The guy looks and sounds just like him.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Awesome. So if they play around here, I'll have to let you guys know so you can come to see them.
Billy Joel was cool too. We saw him when he was in Nashville. And I had such an appreciation for what a gifted man. I mean, you know he is, but you see him live, and they're like, oh, they're playing that and singing that, and he's writing that stuff.
I know.
Gosh.
It's like, where was his mind when he's writing those chords and just the melodies are just crazy good.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Because another question I was going to ask you guys, have you listened to his latest, the Turn the Lights Back On?
I haven't.
Oh, really?
I haven't.
No.
Oh, buddy.
Okay.
New song from Billy. It came out with about, I don't know, a year ago, maybe? Amazing.
Really?
Amazing.
I'll check it
Watch
out.
the music video. Check out the music video first. I played it for my business partner. He's like, this is just, he's a discerning palate when it comes to music.
Yeah.
He goes, that is a good song. You know?
Okay.
That's a question I have for you. What is being written today, or maybe in the last 10 years, that's going to have the same kind of multi-generational longevity as, you know, Africa, Don't Stop Believin', those types of songs? Is there anything being written today that's going to have that impact 2-3 generations down the line?
Not that I've heard.
No?
Morgan Wallen's he's probably going to do one, you know. I mean, he's had a couple that are already going to live for a long time.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I haven't heard anything like you're talking about. What are we hearing that's going to be 30, 40 years down the road
Right.
being played at the Sphere in Vegas? Those people are going to be headlining, you know.
Or just gets, you know, used in a production piece. Like, you know, Don't Stop Believin' had life.
It's a standard. Those are standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think that those guys in Journey were writing a multi-generational iconic hit?
You know, I kind of wonder, you know, and like you said, Morgan Wallen's that's a great one. I just wonder if it's all relative in the sense that, like, if I'm coming up and I'm younger, I'm in college or whatever, and Morgan Wallen is the biggest thing right there, he will always be the biggest thing to me. Yeah. Like as I get older, and same with like Hank Jr., for example, he was huge to me, and I'd listen to that over and over again, and he'll always be huge to me. You know, I just wonder if it's kind of relative in the sense that when you're way into music and you're growing up, and it's those bands and that music that meant the most to you, will everybody's nostalgia be different?
Where people are in life.
I know the songs the songs are not going to be as they're not going to be as iconic as some of the older stuff because they come and go so fast.
Yeah.
The burn factor on a lot of these big songs, they hit you in the face real quick and they go up real fast, and then there's another one coming out.
Yeah.
So people don't have time.
It's
so quick. It's so disposable right now, and it's like people don't have time to let something become iconic. A song doesn't have enough time to live, you know.
Well, unless it speaks to people. Like, I'm not okay. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's going to speak to a lot of people. I think that'll have longevity. That makes me want to go back and listen to it again and again and again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Same with Need a Favor, just because those things they're songs, but they're also like sermons a little bit, you know?
Well, even like the, you know, I think there's like the Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper song. That's an amazing song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that'll have longevity. Adele comes to mind. You think?
Who knows?
Sure.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
I just don't think there's going to be any more Eagles. There's not going to be any more Hotel Californias. There's not going to be. I mean,
well, what made them resonate at the time? You know, what was going on in the world? Why did they hit so big? You know, again, going back to Pendulum, what was happening? It was they came out in the 70s, so that was the midway up of a me cycle. There's a lot of things going on in the world that they resonated for some reason, you know. Plus, it was the baby boomers. They were in a formative time in their lives where a lot of music was probably indelibly leaving a mark on their lives. I remember where I was when I first heard it. You know, all these amazing things are happening in my life, new experiences, so on and so forth. You know? Yeah.
When you do have those generational talents, which, you know, and I would put Morgan there because you had Garth. I mean, you got Taylor, you got Morgan. You have these artists that come around. They're just not like everybody else, you know. And you have a lot of people that are hugely successful in between that too. But just a few of them just take over the world.
The true
very few
A-list.
take over the world, you know. But the B list is pretty dang good. The B list has Jets too.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, you even look like, it's funny, even going back to like bands like, I was big into Rush coming up because of the technicality of their playing and everything. They have left such a legendary mark on the world because of just, spanning 40 years and doing it their own way.
Yeah.
They didn't give a crap,
Yeah.
rabid fan base, but they just did their thing.
They had to get a little commercial with Tom Sawyer. Moving pictures, I mean.
And that was such an odd song.
And it was, but commercially, what it sounded like, all their lyrics are whack. Neil Peart was just freaking, he was a whack job when it came to lyrics, but they worked,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They worked. And that album was actually what turned me on to Rush.
Really?
2112 was awesome, but when Moving Pictures came out, I was like, oh.
That was a turning point.
God.
They got into the synth too heavy in the 80s as well. Power Windows, Signals, and all that fun stuff. Great albums. Were you into those guys, Caleb? No.
No.
You don't want to write in 7 and all that fun stuff? 1916 time?
I'm not that talented.
Just counting.
There's more Michael Jackson,
Michael
Prince.
Jackson, he was another iconic guy.
You can't say Prince now. It's formerly known.
I never got into him.
I did. He had some good
freak,
music. And
man.
that dude, you talk about a freak of nature, talent-wise, that dude, even playing guitar and stuff. You see him live.
Everything he did.
It's stupid. He's so good.
To me, every guitar player's got to compare to Eddie Van Halen. That's just, and I'm not even a guitar
Well, you can't
player.
compare those two. They're two completely different
totally
players.
different.
Totally.
But I do respect. I mean, anybody that can do the things that people like that do, whether I love that music or not, I had tipped my hat to them.
Well, with that being said, I mean, we're going on, we've had a great conversation, so I think we're going to wrap it up. Those of you listening, make sure you go to trythatinasmalltown.com. Again, I would strongly urge you. We've got the prices set so you can be a sponsor of the show. I think very reasonable at this point. It's not going to remain there forever. Go there, inquire within, check out the show in general, follow along, and listen to a couple of episodes. I think they're getting more and more world class as we move forward with them. And of course, if you're listening to this show and you know somebody who would be a great fit, let me know about him. Send them over to MMTBP.com. That is MMTBP.com. Or you can put in mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.com, but that's a lot longer. It'll take you a lot more time to put that in. So with that being said, guys, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks so much, Jim. Love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for all you do for us.
Absolutely.